Would you agree that there is little in recent history which inspires hope? Agree with that? Enough said. The same was true back in the time of the first reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, because the people were in captivity in Babylon. And Jeremiah came to them and said, the days are coming when the Lord will fulfill his promise, a promise he made long ago. And they might have said, because they were in captivity in Babylon. The great King David and his kingdom, which was supposed to be everlasting, had been destroyed. The city was burned down, the temple destroyed, and there they were in captivity. And he said the promise that he made long ago is going to be fulfilled. It's supposed to be a sign of hope. But it was a difficult thing, you see, because of those hundreds of years between the time of David and then in the next 500 years before that prophecy would actually be fulfilled. Now, 500 years is a long time. And God was going to fulfill his promise in his way. And that over that 500 years, since that promise was again renewed, they kind of fell asleep. You know, it's like, well, it's not going to happen. And when Jesus came, the fulfillment of that promise, Jesus, when he came, most people missed him because they weren't ready, they weren't looking. Kind of fell asleep during the whole process. But the promise was fulfilled in Jesus, and he came, and he said, what was promised is now fulfilled in me, and the Son of Man will come on the cloud in glory and power and establish the kingdom again, God's kingdom. And people at the time were occupied by the Romans, and most of them missed him. They didn't see the fulfillment of the promise in Jesus. And that's not such an unusual thing because we can easily miss him too. We wait for so long and it's like we kind of get busy about other things. And then so therefore Jesus says, be awake, stay awake. Do not become drowsy through drunkenness and carousing and anxieties about daily life. Maybe we can presume that most of us in here are not carousing and drunk. But the other one about the anxieties of daily life, maybe they kind of overtake our focus too often. So, the promise is still there, but we fall asleep because it's hard to maintain our faith over the long haul, over a long period, isn't it? Kind of hard to maintain that. Because, for one, we live in a world which is contrary to the message of the gospel and contrary to Jesus Christ. We live in a materialistic world. Material things are good. But to think that what they're advertising on TV and the promise they give, if you buy this, you're going to be happy, well, that's not what we believe. Material things pass away. God and the promise of God doesn't. So we live in a materialistic world. We live in a secular world, which just kind of prefers to go on thinking that God doesn't exist and kind of acting that way, just to do their own thing. And God isn't really much of a part of it, part of the secular world. That's kind of contrary in our world, too, to what we believe. And one more. We live in a world which says, destroy your enemy. Anybody hear that recently? Destroy the enemy. I don't remember Jesus saying that. So those are things contrary to what we believe. between the promise of Jesus and the end time when he comes again on the cloud in power and glory. Between then and now is where we live in the in-between time, and we've been waiting 2,000 years for that promise of God to be filled in God's way. And he hasn't come the second time yet. The people back in his time thought they would come rather quickly. Look at other passages in the New Testament, and you'll find that to be true. But it didn't happen, and we are still kind of waiting in between. And we wait in the season of Advent. And it's not as if we don't know what's going to happen, because it's kind of spelled out there and what to do in the meantime. It's kind of like preparing for retirement. Retirement, a surprise to everybody. I'm going to retire at 65 or 70 or 52, whatever age it is. And in order to do that, I need to have enough in the IRA and my bank and in a savings account. I need to figure out what my pension and Social Security is going to be. I need to find a hobby so I don't drive my spouse nuts, something to do with my time. It's like, okay. And then I heard several weeks ago on the news a surprising thing that says a large percentage of people in the United States are not prepared for retirement. At least for those who are able to prepare themselves, they're not. About 40% is what I heard. It's not a surprise, but they don't prepare. And we are called to prepare ourselves for the coming of Jesus. And just as likely as we are to not prepare for other things in life, so also might we be likely not to take that seriously and prepare for his coming. But his coming is the future we don't know, but we also need to realize that his coming is now. He is present among us now. We need to be awake to that. And that's what Jesus says. Don't get drowsy, but rather be awake. And how can we do that? How can we be awake along the way? Well, a reading suggests at least two things today. The first reading says this: may you be abundant and grow in your love for one another. Because Jesus is here now. It's not like it was in the Old Testament times. He's coming again, but he is also here now. And he comes to us, and he asks us to be his very presence in the world, to love one another as he loved us. To get with it with that. Because when we are attentive to his presence in our lives, and we live out that presence, we help him to be more recognized by other people. And so one day we're going to do that. One day I want to say, I got something that describes it better. Here it goes. It's a poem called Today. I don't know who wrote it, but here it goes anyway. I shall do much in the years to come, but what have I done today? I shall give out gold in princely sum, but what did I give today? I shall lift the heart and dry the tear. I shall plant a hope in the place of fear. I shall speak loudly with words of love and cheer. But what have I done today? I shall be so kind in the after while, but what have I been today? I shall bring to each lonely life a smile, but what have I brought today? I shall give to truth a grander birth, and to steadfast faith a deeper worth. I shall feed the hungering souls of earth. But whom have I fed today? Today is the day we need to be awake to the presence of the Lord and to proclaim that presence by abounding greater love for one another. And in the gospel, Jesus gives us the other hint. He says, be vigilant and pray. Be in constant contact with God through prayer, some kind of prayer every day. And when we are in prayer, some kind of our prayer, we all pray differently, but whatever prayer that is, do that on a daily basis. And let that be a guide for us. Because when we pray daily, We are more in expectation of seeing and experiencing the presence of Christ in the world. I found a story that kind of speaks to that as well. Like a family waiting for the return of their soldier after receiving word that he is safe and headed home. Be on watch. So Robbie Robbins was an Air Force pilot during the first Iraqi war. He flew over 100 missions and then was surprised to be given permission to immediately pull his crew together and fly his plane home. These young military men flew across the ocean to Massachusetts and then a long drive to western Pennsylvania. They drove all night. When his buddies dropped Robbins off at his driveway just after sunup, there was a big banner across the garage. Welcome home, Dad. How did they know? No one had called, and the crew themselves hadn't expected to leave so quickly. Robbins relates that when he walked into the house, the kids, half dressed for school, screamed, "Daddy!" His wife Susan came running down the hall. She looked terrific, hair fixed, makeup on, and a crisp yellow dress. "How did you know?" he asked. "I didn't," she answered through tears of joy. "We knew you tried to surprise us, so we were ready every day." Isn't what that Advent is about? Be ready every day through the love we share, abounding in love, and through our prayer.